From the historic Cosmic Potato Studios, welcome to Discovery Aftershow. My name is Sean Ray, and tonight we will be discussing the 13th and penultimate episode of Star Trek Discovery's second season, which was titled Such Sweet Sorrow Part 1. It was written by Michelle Paradise, Jenny Lumet, and Alex Kurtzman, and it was directed by Alatunde Osunsanmi. Here to discuss the episode with me is my band of merry men and one merry lady. We have the co-host of Wait You've Never Seen and our communications officer, Virginia Pickle. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
And the host of Captain Game Show and a whiz at 10 Forward Trivia Night, our science officer, Commander John Irons. How's it going?
I wasn't sure where you were going with that. I'm fine, thank you.
And the host of Starbase The Next Generation and the guy that keeps us all in line, Admiral Rick Tatro.
I just want y'all to know I love you.
All of you. And tonight we have two celebrity guests. First of all, regular contributor and friend of the show, Mr. Scott Matteson. How's it going, sir?
That's not how it works, love bug.
and one of the hosts of DC On Screen, as well as the Star Trek Universe podcast, David C. Roberson. How's it going, sir?
It is going well. Thank you guys for having me.
No problem. Great to have you. So,
I know.
Yeah, it's a full house tonight, but it's an important episode, so it warranted having a full house tonight. So, let's do our general overview of the episode. We'll kind of go around the virtual table. Everybody give us a quick spoiler-free rating of what you thought of the episode, and then we'll get into some more spoiler-filled territory in just a couple of minutes. So, Scott, we'll start with you. What did you think of Such Sweet Sorrow Part 1?
Well, my first full viewing of it, I was okay with it. I assumed that I would really love the episode when they finally finished it next week, because it was very clearly not a full episode. It was the first half of a feature-length episode, and I really wish they had aired it all as a double-length episode, because with the way this two-part finale is structured, to separate it and air just the first half felt very low energy. There wasn't a whole lot of excitement, certainly not a lot of action in this episode, which is fine, but it really leaves you wanting. If you're leading up to a season finale with a penultimate episode, you want to really keep the people on the edge of their seats, and that's not what this episode did. However, for what it was, for what they ended up giving us, is very well put together. It was very emotional. I thought it was very well written. But at the same time, it felt incomplete because of the way it's structured. So that was my main takeaway from it, was it's not done yet. Why do I have to wait?
I agreed with that. I kind of likened it to, for instance, if you go back and watch All Good Things, the series finale of The Next Generation, when it originally aired, it was a 2-hour episode, and it was written and filmed as a 2-hour episode. But if you go back and watch it now, it's 2 1-hour episodes, and the first hour is a lot of lead up to it. It's not a standalone episode. Mm-hmm. And it's not even like a 2-parter, because 2-parters are still like 2 standalone episodes that go to the end of the first one. Might be a cliffhanger, but when you have a 2-hour episode, the first hour of it doesn't always build up the same way that a 2-parter episode would.
It's like the difference between All Good Things and The Best of Both Worlds.
Right. Yeah. David, what about you? What did you think of this episode?
I felt about this episode the same as I felt about the last 2 or 3. I kind of feel like for the season on the whole, I need about 10 more standalone episodes for me to actually get to know the cast and see their interactions. But because they keep kind of throwing me into this situation where I'm supposed to feel things that I just don't feel. But overall, I think the episode was good. I felt like they were stretching a bit with a lot of their emotional beats, and I feel like there was some padding, some cramming in of things to try to make one episode into 2.
Yeah, I can see that too. Virginia,
Good
what
and
about you?
I agree a lot with what Scott was saying. It was a really good like lead up episode. I liked what they did with the Enterprise. I liked the thing that slowed me down the most was just so many goodbye scenes. I was messaging out earlier. I counted when I was rewatching 12 goodbye scenes in a 48-minute episode is a lot. But obviously you don't want to throw that in the season finale and be like, well, so-and-so didn't say goodbye to so-and-so. Well, now we have it all in one episode, but what else happened? Not much.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the episode title was Such Sweet Sorrow, so so I kind of figured. You're right, Emma. There was a lot of goodbye scenes in this episode. It was probably more than it should have been. But I mean, when they're going into what they're planning on going into, and they think they may not see some of these people again. But we did get goodbye scenes from people that we really didn't know that well. So that was a little strange. Rick, what about you? What'd you think?
Eyes front for the most contrived peril in the history of disco. There were aspects of this episode that I absolutely loved. There was a certain piece of hardware that had me literally in tears. It was so gorgeous. But yeah, this episode had about 20 minutes of substance and 30 minutes of let's all get weepy and not act like we're in a hurry. And let's ignore the fact that we can jump to anywhere in the freaking galaxy while these slowpokes only have warp drive, but we're in a hurry. But Mom and Dad can come and visit.
Yeah.
Well, there's
Yeah,
literally a
yeah.
ticking clock on the main view screen.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But I get ahead of myself.
All right. John, what about you?
It just didn't bother me that much. I mean, all of your points are valid, and I hear where you're coming from. And I think I just kind of abandoned the idea, maybe even the first season, of individual episodes being individual episodes. So, yeah, this episode had a lot of goodbyes in it, but it's not. I mean, that's just this little part of the story. And like you said, Sean, I mean, it's called Such We Saw. Like, they let you know. They gave you the warning in the title. I am not the hardware aficionado as other Trek fans. So while I appreciated the Enterprise, I honestly wouldn't have noticed a lot of things that they had changed. I was like, oh, it's the Enterprise. Cool. Shiny. in every meaning of that word, shiny. But I mean, it's clearly part one of a two-part story, and I took it as that. So, and I every complaint that you guys have made and are going to make, I probably don't disagree with. Just hadn't bothered me yet. I got to see how they finish it off before I can be annoyed by it. Yes.
I will say that the second watching when I watched it the second time, it didn't seem to drag as much as it did the first time through.
Let me also apologize because I'm so I've actually got my work laptop also, so I am working while I'm doing this. So if I continue to look away, it's not because you guys are boring. It's because I need my paycheck.
Understandable.
Well, I want to say that I agree with what Rick said just then. I actually had to leave my second viewing of the episode to come and do this show. Rather than going back and watching this episode all the way through a second time to prep for the show, over the past 2 days, I've essentially binged the entire second season. Because while I've been keeping up week to week, my wife has only seen the first episode. So over the past 2 days, she has watched everything, including Such Sweet Sorrow. And I was with her through most of that. So I was able to go back and review the whole season, which we'll probably be doing in about 2 weeks if I'm on that podcast. So that's not what we're talking about. But when I was watching it tonight, before I left to come and do the podcast, I did notice that less of the episode was devoted to goodbyes than it felt like the first time I watched it. And B, the things that happened in the first half of the episode were more story driven and more interesting than the second half of the episode, which was all the goodbyes. But the build up to it and the deciding that goodbyes have to happen, that was more prominent in the episode than it felt like, having only watched it once. So it's an episode that should be watched more than once, I think. If people don't like it, go back and watch it again. Yeah,
I mean, I will agree with everything that you guys said, but I still love this episode. I mean, it just, and I like, okay, so I know the Enterprise bridge was different, and a lot of people, some people are praising it, some people are complaining about it. I know Saru had basically Chekhov's knife in his hand, and we saw Chekhov's torpedo in the Lives in the Bridge, and in the saucer section in that vision and everything, and even the tender goodbye stuff. I was okay with that. I can't explain it, but this episode just like checked off a bunch of boxes for me. So, from a Trekkie nerd aspect, I thought the episode was gorgeous. There were shots of the Enterprise that I thought were beautiful. When we saw the planet Zahir. Okay, there you go. When we saw that a little bit later on, I thought it looked great. The shot where they're gearing up for battle at the end of the episode looked really good. So,
and it wouldn't have been an Osu Sami episode if we didn't flip the camera over a few times.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I was seriously getting so motion sickness. Like, they've got to stop that. It's ridiculous.
That seems to be happening all season, regardless of director.
Yes.
It's also
but he really goes for it when he does it, though.
It happens
I've definitely seen Frakes do it a few times.
Yeah, that's true.
I think
it happens in every episode, at least once in every episode of the season. We saw that happen, and I started thinking, I wonder if it means something. I wonder if there's a meaning behind the upside down camera flipping around.
I think it's just the visual aesthetic of the show. I think that this is how they want this show to look, and that's one of the little visual cues. Not even like necessarily denoting something else. It's just, it's the style of the painting. It's just how Discovery looks, and it's just part of, for whatever reason, they've decided to do it, and it's consistent through the show.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I really love about that, and JJ's Star Trek movies did it too, is it really makes you feel like you are in space. Whereas like all the old stuff, you always felt like there was always some sort of sense of where they were supposed to be.
Up and down.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. The Discovery has gotten a lot of its visual cues from the Kelvin timeline movies, and understandably so, because I've said before, there are Star Trek fans out there that their first Star Trek was 2009, the film. So they don't want to alienate those people. They want to bring them in as well. So that's why we're seeing a lot of lens flare, and things like that. But okay, I'm going to read the synopsis. This is the synopsis that was on IMDb, and then we'll get into our we'll break down the episode scene by scene. When the USS Discovery's crucial mission does not go according to plan, Burnham realizes what must ultimately be done. The crew prepares for the battle of a lifetime as Leland's control of ships get closer. So right away, we get the answer to a question that we talked about last week. Is Leland dead? I guess technically Leland the person is dead, but Leland the Borgified creature is still out there.
Unconfirmed.
Well, she saw the future, and he was there. I have seen the future, and the future is Leland.
No, it's unconfirmed that it's anything to do with the Borg.
Oh, yeah. No, I know. I'm being facetious. Oh. But, okay, so the episode opens with Sarek sitting by the ocean meditating. Someone just yelled. So the episode opens with Sarek sitting by the ocean and he's meditating, and he kind of snaps out of it and he just says, "Michael," which is the only real problem that I had with the episode was the way that they shoehorned Sarek into it. David, what do you think of this?
I am fine. Like, I don't have any problems with, him having that connection because, they've always sort of been a little wonky about what Vulcans can sense and how. But I don't like that they just showed up, and maybe I'm missing something because, I get distracted while I'm watching stuff. But was there like a real reason that, like, I know this is jumping ahead, but was there like a reason they showed up on the ship and they couldn't have said, "Hey, let's grab some Vulcan fleet, or let's go grab some Starfleet or somebody to come help out"? Or
thing, because the whole thing they dropped several lines saying that they can't contact Starfleet because Control is interfering with their subspace frequencies or whatever, but Sarek is able to figure out that something's wrong, and he comes there, but he comes by himself. He should have brought everybody with him.
Yeah. It's like, just pop in and then dip. Like, you could help, dude. Really?
Yeah.
Or maybe Zahia has a working subspace transmitter. Or you could spore jump to Sector 001 for crying out loud.
Well, they said they couldn't use the spore drive because they were using all the power from the spore drive to charge the time crystal.
But they hadn't started that yet before they decided they needed to.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
That was my biggest problem with this episode, is not that they had to get the ship to the future. That's fine. But they created this artificial urgency, and then everybody sort of moseyed about their business while not being urgent at all. And then Sarek and Amanda show up, and you're like, "What?"
Yeah.
If Sarek jerks himself out of a deep meditation. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I thought it was going somewhere else.
If he snaps out of a deep meditation every single time that Michael is in danger, then Amanda must not get much sleep because he's doing that all the time. You were about to say something, Virginia?
Yes, but I might have forgotten. Oh, yes. So kind of what y'all were saying is, like, it seems like, everything was happening very quickly and Control's only 10 minutes behind the Enterprise and blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, how do they even get there in time? They're not an hour from Vulcan. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah. So, that was all.
Yeah, I understand they want to put Sarek in the episode because they're getting towards the end of the season and he hasn't been in the last several episodes. And they're really trying to ramp up the fact that they want us to think that Michael is going to be going away forever. And so they've got to have a goodbye with him. And so they had to shoehorn it in somehow. I just didn't like the way that they did it, but.
Well, and also their sense of time it's always been a little wonky on this show. But this was like, we have an hour, quick, smelt some metal and retro-engineer this suit.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So last week, Michael said, "Jean-Luc, blow up the damn ship," and Pike. So Pike called Enterprise to come and pick him up. Well, Enterprise is here now, and they're evacuating everyone so that they can destroy the Discovery. And then we get the weirdest bit of tech that I have seen on Star Trek. They have catwalks that unfold.
I loved those.
I didn't say I didn't like it. I just thought it was weird. It's something that we've never seen it before, and we haven't seen it since. It's just these catwalks they unfold and attach to the other ship. It seems really dangerous to be walking across empty space like that. I mean, that you obviously couldn't do that if there were enemy ships in the air, because one phaser blast could kill the entire crew.
Yeah, I will agree that it was weird. It was really cool. It was like something from a Luc Besson sci-fi movie, though. Like, I felt like it was just like, this isn't Star Trek. This is weird. Okay, I'll give it to him. It looks cool.
The thing is, we're still early enough in the Starfleet timeline that probably beaming the entire crew off in anything like a reasonable amount of time isn't going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I thought it was certainly more than some of the crazy ass stuff they pulled out of their exhaust pipes for this show.
Well, see, what I was hoping for is for them to all cram into a tiny little shuttle and like fly around the Enterprise for about 6 minutes and then slowly dock.
6 minutes. That's cutting it short.
I'm trying to be kind. It's a television show. You can't go the full length.
The biggest issue I had with those catwalks is it's the same issue that I had with whatever they called the piece of tech that held the dark matter asteroid in place in the cargo bay at the beginning of the season, which is
generator.
Yes, thank you. The doors open up and the catwalk kind of slowly inches out of that door, and then it gets super long, a lot longer than it has any right to be, considering how much space it was taking up at the door. Now it's taking up a massive amount of space. Now I know it was just the framework and the rest was made with force fields, but still, we saw the same thing last episode with Gant's helmet, or really all the helmets for all their EV suits, is once the material gets out of sight, if there's something in front of it, then it just disappears. It doesn't have to take up any space at all, and it can become whatever you want. And that's the type of technological leap that I can never get behind. You can't make something out of nothing. And to me, those catwalks need to be a lot of something out of very little.
What if, and again, I can't say I care, but I do like to argue, what if built into the expanding catwalk is some replicator technology? So it doesn't contain all of the parts. It contains the framework of the framework, and it replicates as it expands. And by the time it gets to the ship, then you've got the full thing. It replicates the parts. It generates the parts that it needs as it goes. And by the time it gets to the other ship, it's got everything it needs. Then you put up the force fields. Bada boom, bada bing. And when it's time to take it away, it's like putting the dishes in the sink. It goes away. Put it back up.
Well,
as a person who knows nothing about science, that sounds like some galaxy class headcanoning right there. I'm down for that.
As someone who is preparing to do a podcast about the tech of Star Trek, I just have to pedantically say replicators don't exist yet.
I tried.
Yeah, I know. It didn't bother me. In fact, the second time through, I was watching it, and Scott, I'm usually right on board with hey, that doesn't, the helmets I hate. I hate that. It's a contrivance that came about, and I blame who did Batman? Why am I blanking on his name? Tim Burton.
Oh.
When the magic Batmobile shields, that's where that whole CG things coming out of nowhere started.
Wait a minute. That might be it.
replicated?
I always think of Stargate rather than Batman, but you make a good point.
But anyway, I mean, it was fun. It was fun in Batman, but it's
John's like, no.
Well, I'm confused about the replicator thing. He said replicators don't exist, but they made her a uniform.
Yeah, her uniform came out. Of
yeah. I'm not sure what they're. Yeah. Okay, as far as I know, the replicator was a TNG thing. But I could be wrong. You're right. I have complained about people making assumptions that just because we haven't seen it, it doesn't exist before. But as far as I know, transporter technology has not gotten to the point where they could do that sort of level of replication. But as I was watching, we're wasting way too much time on this topic. But as I was watching it the second time, I noticed that as they were all folded up. So there seemed to be plenty of unfolding, and metamaterials being what they are in our state of technology right now, it could be that these catwalks are super thin. It could be like 1 or 2 molecules thick, but it's still as strong as it needs to be. Especially with the force fields kind of lending it they may just the catwalk itself may just be there to support force field generators or something. So,
Yeah.
I feel like I should say in full disclosure, I know what the producers say, but from the get-go, I have headcanon this show into a parallel reality. I just can't help it. I can't enjoy it otherwise. So just so you guys know, that's where I'm coming from. Just going like, okay, whatever. Like,
I've headcanoned it into the same timeline, but an altered timeline.
yeah.
That's a whole other. That's a whole other thing. Okay, so they're evacuating, and Pike tells Michael that, hey, it's time to go, and she's staring at the time crystal and saying, you know, we haven't got a chance to use this, like it wasn't her idea to blow up the ship. But so she touches the crystal, and the crystal shows her a glimpse of the future, where she sees a torpedo lodged in the hull of the Enterprise. And then, you know, good old time crystals, you know, because that's what they do. And then they're on the Enterprise. So we saw a scene earlier in the season where Michael was on the Enterprise and she went into Spock's quarters and all that. But this is the first time that we saw the bridge. You know, before we saw the bridge, we saw the turbo lift, and we heard the sound effect of the turbo lift opening and closing. And but
Don't mind
once
me.
what was that?
I have a question before we get to the bridge.
Okay.
Can you not move the time crystal with like tongs or something? Does someone have to physically
oven mitt.
pick it up to move oven mitt something? I'm like, why are these? Someone else touches it late. Oh yeah, Jet Reno touches it later, and I'm like, there has to be a way to move it around without.
I don't think she touched it. I think she just exposed it. She opened it. She opened the box.
Yeah, Jet was getting a vision because of proximity. Now, as far as Michael touching it, I'm pretty sure that she chose to put her hands on it because she wanted to know what it was going to show her. I don't think that she had to touch the crystal to get it moved. I think that was her breaking the rule, breaking the do not touch rule, and she did it anyway.
Breaking the rule.
Because she's a little kid. She's a little kid in a hot stove. You know, she's just got to put her hand on it. But
right.
Okay, so what did you guys think of the Enterprise bridge?
I freaking loved it.
I did too.
And I expected to have to do the kind of mental gymnastics I have to do to tolerate the Kelvin version of the ship, which I absolutely despise, but that's not what we're here to talk about.
The USS Maxtor?
Don't get me started. But you know, as soon as they came through the door and it made the right noise, and then we pull back and we just from the turbo lift door, you see there's already more to the bridge than there originally was. And I love the little hallway that goes behind the aft stations and goes to the turbo lift door. But as it pulled out and backed up and we saw the ship, now Christy Philippus pointed out that this show bringing me to tears isn't all that unusual anymore, but I literally sobbed out loud when I saw the bridge, because it was, I won't say that it was something that I foresaw or that it's exactly how I wanted it to be. I had no idea what it would look like. I had no idea what I wanted it to look like, but as soon as I saw it, it was like, that is how I want it to be. It was just, it could not have been any better. If they had gone for an absolutely slavish recreation of the ship as we know from TOS, it would have looked so horribly anachronistic. It would have been laughable. I think this was the perfect melding of what was original and what needed to be for a show in 2019. And it was just gorgeous. The sound was perfect. The colors were great. The size was not outrageously huge like they've been doing with a lot of the other ships. I don't have a bad word to say. Every shot of the Enterprise, whether from the interiors or the exteriors, was a love letter to Matt Jeffries. And if he was alive today, I'm sure he would have approved of it.
Did you notice the plaque?
Yeah. Well, no, I did. You can't read it as he goes by it, but somebody posted a picture of it.
Yeah. There's a plaque on the wall, and it says, the USS Enterprise and it calls it Starship class, which obviously is Constitution class, but in the original pilot, when Pike was captain, the plaque that they showed said Starship class. So
That's what the plaque always said.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh. So yeah.
My
Go ahead,
favorite part
Virginia.
of that was when Pike walks onto the bridge and he says, "She looks as good as I remember." And I thought that was sort of like, wink, wink, fans. We hope you like this.
Yeah, I thought that was clever.
Yeah.
I think Rick was spot on. Everything looked great. All the sounds are great. I also enjoyed that the Enterprise officers not only have the colored uniforms that we're used to, but the deltas on their chest match the original Enterprise mission patch, rather than the with the vertical dividing line two-part delta that we've seen on Discovery so far. They look like the original Enterprise badges. I thought that was a nice smaller touch. And this was the best example of what I've been thinking and feeling since Discovery first premiered in season 1, which is everyone who complains that things on Discovery, like the ships and the technology, look too far advanced compared to TOS, which takes place after it. It really comes down to the fact that when TOS was made, they did the best they could. If they could have made stuff look like this is what it would have looked like 50 years ago when they made the original show. So my headcanon has become the 3 seasons of TOS. That's not what actually happened. That is a 1960s recreation of what actually happened. Like someone decided to put on a play of Star Trek. So what we're stuck with is the best Galaxy Quest style recreation that they could get. So wouldn't it be interesting if we could get all 3 seasons of TOS remade with a new cast and with modern sets and special effects, but just absolutely recreate the episodes? The same script, the same beats, the same settings, but just make everything look and sound like it does today. Wouldn't that be interesting?
Yeah. Nobody would complain about that online at all.
So how would you headcanon the Enterprise two-parter where the mirror universe people go over to what is very obviously a faithful recreation of the original Defiant?
Well, in my headcanon, David C. Roberson would not be on this podcast, so he wouldn't ask me that question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't have a good
I don't think that's
explanation
how
for
headcanon
everything.
works.
Yeah.
Of all the people who I thought would not want me on this show, it wasn't you, Scott.
I love the fact that you're here, but I hate the fact that I haven't thought of every question and thought of clever answers for every question. So when I get caught,
Because
I'd lash out.
I only think about that because that and Trials and Tribulations are like the pieces where I'm like, they were so faithful to recreate things. You even had, I think it was Doug Drexler who went in and did like some sort of like some small scale stuff to make sure that the original bridge looked even better because it was going to be in HD. Like, oh, you couldn't have seen this because it was in SD, but here's some new segments and here's some little pieces that you couldn't have seen before. And I honestly thought that, like, I was one of those people who thought on Enterprise it looks too futuristic until I saw that episode and I went, you know what? It's a stylistic change and the old bridge looks gorgeous. So for me, I do still want to see those old aesthetics, and I do love all of the old sound effects. I'm just a sucker for the original series, though. I can't help it. I just love it.
I agree with you, and I am an involuntary canonista. Okay, I wish I could. I cannot enjoy the novels. I've only been able to get through one fan series. Because usually the quality is so bad, but a lot of it is just I just can't handle getting invested in a story that quote unquote didn't happen. That's how my brain works. It's not even me just fighting about it. But something Gene Roddenberry said when people were whining about the Klingons in the motion picture, he said, just point blank, this is what they always looked like. We just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And so I don't need a headcanon to connect Discovery to TOS. I just know that, 50 years ago, they did the best they could with the predictions they had, and they were 99% wrong about what the future was going to hold. Nobody foresaw, or very few people foresaw that the revolution would not be energy driven, but it would be miniaturization and data driven. And so a lot of the things that TOS was banking on never happened and probably won't. But that's how you get like my cell phone is far more advanced than any communicator Kirk ever had. Because, but they didn't have, well, yeah, I mean, within reason, look at TNG where Wesley was going to school and holding 15 different pads because nobody realized that one pad could put, all of the knowledge of mankind in your hand. So I give it a lot of leeway. It's a TV show. We love it, but they have to change the aesthetic for every generation that's watching. I don't think, for us, we loved seeing, I love Trials and Tribulations, and I loved seeing the Defiant in Enterprise and stuff like that. But we're also the old crowd. We're not the people they're aiming this stuff at anymore. Mm-hmm. And if we threw a TOS style bridge at 20 somethings right now, they'd probably be off the air by now. They just wouldn't buy it.
Yeah. Well, I would argue that the people they're trying to aim new stuff for wouldn't care if it was prime timeline or not. I just hate that they tell us a certain thing and then it's clearly different from that thing. So, and I'm sure that has to do with licensing and all of that crap. But I do accept all the novels as canon because Star Trek is a multiverse. Like, they've established that there are multiple universes. So I enjoy everything with the knowledge that it's a different reality. Like, there are too many Diane Duane books that don't make it up with canon, and those books should not go ignored. Those are brilliant things. So
Peter David, Michael James.
Oh, absolutely.
Some great stories.
Yeah, I read some really good ones. And I've read some real. I made it all the way through How Much for Just the Planet, and that still hurts. And that was.
we don't have to consider everything canon. Like the Great Starship Race can just sit on the shelf and not be canon, and it's fine.
Okay, so they activate the self-destruct sequence remotely, and Discovery ain't having it. Is that I'm
Big
not dying.
Surprise.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't blow up. The sphere data is protecting itself, and which tells me that the ship is already starting to gain some sort of consciousness. So they try the auto destruct, it doesn't work. They fire some torpedoes. Discovery raises its shields all by itself, and Pike starts to launch another torpedo, but Michael has another vision where she's on the bridge of the Discovery, and Leland comes in and kills everybody, and she still sees that torpedo lodged in the hull of Enterprise. So I don't know if she's thinking that Discovery is going to launch a torpedo on its own to protect itself or something, but anyway, she stops him, says it's not going to work. And
she
my
activates
wife
the Omega-13.
Yeah, my wife was sitting there and she said, "Of course, Michael knows that it's not going to work," and stops everything. So Plan B is to build another Angel suit.
Well, hang on before we move away from that.
Sure.
I know this podcast is gonna last 5 hours. When she says "don't," and Pike looks at her, am I the only one who got the sense that he knew that she saw the future?
Oh,
No,
I assumed.
Yeah, it seemed like he knew that she knew for a reason, and that.
Yeah.
That.
So, and he left her in the room like, "You good with that time crystal?" She's like, "I'm good." So yeah. He might have asked some follow-up. Well, actually, maybe he wouldn't ask follow-up questions. If your future is yours alone, then maybe he would just
Maybe he's just sick of arguing with her.
Yeah.
Well, no. Not that he would argue with her, but hey, you saw the future. You want to tell us about this upcoming battle? You got some further insight about tactics, perhaps?
I just wonder if he is of the mind that he knows Enterprise can't be destroyed while he's there because his future is locked in because of what we saw, last week.
He only knows that he won't be destroyed.
Yeah.
Well, it won't be destroyed as long as he's there.
There's escape pods.
Yeah.
No, not necessarily.
I think it's gotten to the point where when Michael says, "Wait, don't do that. Do this other thing." I think that Pike has finally noticed. Well, her name is first in the opening credits, so I guess we have to go. I guess we have to do it that way.
Do what she says. Yeah.
I was not. My point wasn't why didn't he question her. My point was he didn't seek to get any further information. But if she's clearly got like she got the future on speed dial. Speed dial. So, kids, there used to be a.
No one under 45 is listening to this podcast.
I'm under 40. Anyway,
they clicked out. They clicked off when we said canon the first time.
Right,
Plan B is to build another angel suit. They want to let Michael go through the wormhole because now they kind of go back and forth on this whole whose DNA was in the angel suit. Oh, was it Michael? No, it wasn't Michael. It was her mom. It definitely was Michael. It was Michael. So they're like, Michael is the one that sent all the signals. So they're going to send Michael through the wormhole in the new angel suit, and Discovery is going to follow her through the wormhole into the future, and then theoretically she's going to come back and leave Discovery in the future. And then but they're like, well, how are we going to power the crystal? And then a signal pops up. It's like future Michael is like, here, you can power the crystal by going right here. Go right here. So it appears over Poe's planet, and Poe is a character that we met in the short trek Runaway from late last year. Tilly knows her, and she lets everyone know, I know her. And evidently she failed to file a report, letting everybody know that she came in contact with an alien in the mess hall and beamed her off the ship after she gave her some ice cream. But I thought that this whole signal popping up over Poe's planet that I'm not going to try to pronounce again because I got it wrong the first time.
Zahid.
But yeah, it's kind of like Bill and Ted leaving the keys behind the bush in the future so that their past self could find it.
Trash can. Remember the trash can.
But so I thought Poe, I don't remember the actress's name, but Poe was great in this episode. I thought she was fun. She had sideways eyelids that I forgot about from the short trek.
Pretty hard.
She can use dilithium to create enough energy to power the crystal, but it's going to burn out with one use, so Michael won't be able to come back. And I put in my notes, Poe and Georgiou don't like each other. I don't have to listen to snark. I made it an actual law.
I love that. Oh, that was good.
That was a great line.
Now, I was confused. This is another techie thing that I was kind of confused about. So the explanation from a couple of weeks ago when we met Michael's mother was that it wasn't Michael's mother was in the future. She was coming back into the past, and every time she would get slingshotted back into the future. And they explained that it wasn't the time crystal doing that. That was physics, because it happened even after Leland destroyed the time crystal. She still got pulled back. So if Michael is leaving from the present and going into the future, shouldn't she get pulled back whether she has a time crystal or not?
Yes.
But her mother didn't get pulled back to the present. Her mother got pulled back to the future. It was
because that was her starting point. That was her starting point, because she had left from the present, but when she got to the future, we talked about it before. When she got to the future, she used the time crystal to travel back into the past, and she kept getting pulled back.
Well, starting point. I don't know if you say that's a starting point. If your starting point is the first place you land, after you use the crystal, then Michael's starting point will be whatever point in the future she jumps to.
Yeah.
Like her mom.
Mhm.
I guess.
I think
I mean,
trying to make sense of this whole thing is just going to hurt.
I'm just
Yeah.
just wait
Yeah.
for you to tell me what their effects are today.
Yeah.
Yep.
All
Because
right.
you know, if it was from the point of where you first used the suit, then Michael's mom should have kept getting yanked back to when the Klingons were killing everybody.
Yeah.
That's what I said in that episode, and then I
Yeah.
can't remember the conversation now. But for some reason, I think Scott kind of explained it away.
Well, no, I mean,
I don't remember. I don't remember what was said.
I mean, the explanation was, well, that didn't happen. So I mean, so clearly that theory is wrong. Like,
Yeah.
they have information that we don't have. It could possibly be they don't have it yet either. They haven't thought of it yet, maybe. But
Yeah.
we are at the mercies of whatever they say is fact.
Yeah. What they said in the episode where they captured Michael's mom was that there is a membrane that is anchoring the suit to the future, and that's what they cut her off from with the force field. But they never said how that membrane got established. That was never mentioned because they didn't know, like John just said. Yeah. And she wasn't forthcoming with any information about it.
Now she might not.
All right. So Sarah, this is the point where Sarah and Amanda show up to tell Michael goodbye, and Sarek shows up to tell Michael goodbye and doesn't want to talk to Spock at all. And I know he explained it away. He said, I'll always be here for Spock, even though I keep my distance, just like he asked me to.
Okay, but Spock we haven't had the tearful "we're all coming with you" scene yet. So
yeah. I figured Spock was just busy.
Although
I put in my notes, it was weirdly noticeable that he couldn't pop in for a second to especially if he knows at this point that he's leaving, even if we the audience don't know yet. His absence was noticed, and I'm not saying it was a mistake because clearly he's Spock, but I missed him in that scene.
Well, I mean, I know why it didn't happen is because we have Spock and Sarek's story. We know how Spock and Sarek's story is going to play out. We don't need it to play out here, but the fact that they're both on the ship at the same time and they don't even nod at each other on the way through the hall.
Well, we didn't see where they went from. Go ahead, Virginia.
Oh, it surprised me that Amanda didn't demand to see him, especially after all of that she went through earlier this season. I just want to see him and say hi, whether or not she knew he was leaving or he knew he was leaving. But it was just okay, we told her bye, peace out, see you later.
I felt that was much more conspicuous that Amanda would be there and not see Spock and be okay with that. And vice versa. It seems odd that Spock would allow Amanda to show up and then leave without making sure that he saw her. Mm-hmm. But I think all this just goes to show us that Michael is Sarek's favorite, and that's been made painfully obvious throughout both of these seasons.
Spock has always known it.
Right. He may have some love for his son that he never expresses, but ever since Discovery's premiered, it's been abundantly clear Sarek loves Michael the most.
That might be interesting if they did do, because I've been theorizing that she was killed in the Forge in the original timeline, and so this is an altered timeline. So that would be pretty interesting if part of the reason Sarek and Spock are so estranged in TOS is because of his loss of Michael.
Yeah.
I also, Scott, you said Sarek loves Michael more. It may be quite literal in that they share this katra, and so her emotions, he is more imbued with emotion for her and only for her because he's getting more emotions from her.
Mm-hmm.
So, this bond may like scientifically explain why he might feel more for her than Spock.
That I had not thought of that. I like it.
Yeah,
Well-
the mind meld definitely has something to do with it.
Did they actually rule out any possibility of Amanda seeing Spock before they left? Because an easy
No.
explanation for why they couldn't have shown that is because Spock would have tipped his hand to the audience that I'm going with Michael as well.
Yeah. I would have thought that if they had put a scene in, it would have had to have come after the next couple of scenes, and it would have still been shoehorned in, just like this scene was. But yeah, I mean, anything could have happened off camera that we didn't see or whatever. All we know is what they tell us, and this is what they've told us. But so Michael's supporting cast shows up and tells her that, hey, we're going with you on your mission. So we see Poe, we see Nan, Reno, Stamets, Saru, Tilly, Georgiou, Spock, a couple more, and then they make a drop line that there were a few that couldn't come because they're at their stations. I was kind of surprised that Nan was going to go, just because technically she's an Enterprise crew member. So I thought that everybody from the Enterprise was going to go back to the Enterprise once the season was over, but they said yes, she requested to stay, and they allowed it. And Michael doesn't want them to go because they all have families and all of that, like she doesn't. but yeah,
That's Michael for you.
We're gonna go with you to the future, even though we know that you're not coming back. And then we move to the next scene, I believe, is the one where Pike is getting ready to leave Discovery. And first we see the scene where everybody's sending messages home and I love you and and all that, and it lasts about 20 minutes.
It's not
it was interesting to see who they chose, because not everybody chose a family member and not everyone chose their parents.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Detmer, I think, contacted her best friend, and Stamets contacted his sibling. And like I just thought it was interesting there was a variety of people.
And honestly, my biggest complaint with this scene was not that it was long or people were saying goodbye. I felt like at least one or two of them should have not been in English. And I get, translator, but I mean, as we've seen, when people want to speak other languages, they can. And if you're sending, your final message to your loved one, it struck me as weird that, like, Saru, for example, or Awashikan, I don't know what her native language is. It seemed, I don't know. It, again, not necessarily a mistake, but I felt it would have added a little bit more to the scene to make it seem more.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main reason they didn't is because the producers got so much flack for the amount of subtitles that they used in season 1 with the Klingons that they're trying to avoid that.
If that is true, they can suck it.
A few episodes ago, when they were having Voke and L'Rell yelling at each other in Klingon, like they could have easily cut that out. I think this was just a time management and budget issue, because they would have to decide what languages these other people are speaking, and
I mean, just one or two. I mean,
probably never even occurred.
It could have been French. Like I mean, it doesn't have to be like, they didn't have to invent a whole. Dialect. It could have just, if your native language is whatever, Senegalese, I don't know. It just, to me, it would have added a little bit more to the scene. Again, not a complaint, but it kind of stood out to me.
I saw someone on Twitter say, "Oh, there's a British lady on the ship. I wonder if she's French."
Okay, so Pike's getting ready to leave Discovery. He wants to hand over command of the ship to Saru. Saru wants to wait until this whole crap storm is over, but he does drop a line. He says there are many things to consider, So I don't know. It seems like Saru doesn't want to be the captain anymore.
Yeah, that's weird. I'll be annoyed if it's not Saru.
I'm I'm thinking that it's going to probably be another guest captain. I don't know if they're going to start a thing where every season they have a who's the guest captain of the season,
like the potions master at Hogwarts.
I was going to say, is it
The
Lupin
defense
this
against
time?
dark arts.
I can't help but wonder if they're going to try to pay off the Michael should be a captain of her own ship that they were going to do, and they were talking about in season 1.
Yeah, and
I don't know.
and we don't even know for sure if everybody that goes with her on this mission is going to even survive to be there. You know,
I don't think this mission is going to. Well, that's for later.
It's not going to succeed the way
the
that
ship
we.
isn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
Not yet.
I don't think the ship's going anywhere. I think the crew is, though. But we'll talk about that in a few minutes. So, Tilly can't get the crystal to charge fast enough, so Reno takes it out of the case that's protecting the crew from the effects, and she basically sees the same vision that Burnham saw. You know, she sees the torpedo in Enterprise's hull, and I guess she saw Leland kill everybody too. They didn't show as much detail as they did the first time around. But
Go ahead.
Before we go too much further past this point, I would like to strongly object to the classification of the torpedo as Chekhov's torpedo. Okay, and you know, I saw the same post you did on Facebook. Somebody, I forget who said it, but you know, saying that, you know, we saw Chekhov's knife and Chekhov's torpedo. Well, this is part 1 of a 2-part episode. First of all, I don't think the knife is going to do anything. I don't think it's foreshadowing that somehow the knife is going to save them. It's just, you know, that's Saru's most prized possession.
Not that it's going to save them, but that it's going to be used at some point in the next episode. But
the torpedo is a vision of the future. It's not like it's sitting on the floor of the bridge and everyone's going, "Watch out for that torpedo." You know, it's something that has yet to happen. So I think.
Hey, Bones, what are you doing with that tribble?
Yeah, so I think it's you know, yes, there has been some real clunky foreshadowing in a lot of Star Trek, but I don't think that the torpedo is one of them. It's just that's something that's going to happen, and now we've got at least 2 different people who have seen this vision of the future, and you know, kind of my theory about it is that torpedo may just go off, and that may explain why the Enterprise that we see in TOS is different from this one now, because it gets the living bleep blown out of it.
Yeah.
I think the torpedo is basically going to be a signal. When the torpedo shows up, we're going to know, so the vision is coming true. That's just going to be an indication of, hey, we're now in the moment in the future that they were seeing ahead of time. I don't think it's going to end up being anything more than that. It's not going to play an integral part to the story other than a time indicator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, okay, so Reno sees that, and Reno, the Stamets Reno relationship I really like, because you know they like to not like each other. You know, they don't like each other, and they enjoy not liking each other, but they respect one another. You know, so I enjoy that.
I wondered, as she once again volunteered to put herself in harm's way, if it's like some, you know, some unresolved issues from being kind of other people survived, but kind of the lone survivor from her other crashers. She got kind of a survivor's guilt, death wish kind of subliminal thing going on.
I think that's just who she is, because when we first met her, yeah, she wasn't the only survivor. She stayed behind when everybody else left because those people couldn't go. They were too injured to leave, so she stayed behind to keep them alive, thinking, well, somebody else is going to come and get us. So that's what she does. She volunteers to do things that other people don't want to do. So,
yeah, I loved her and Stamets though. I felt like they were like the new O'Brien and Bashir.
Yeah,
I thought you were going to say Spock McCoy.
No, oh no.
So Ash is not going to go into the future. He wants to stay behind because he wants to make sure that Control can't follow them when they go through the wormhole. So he heads back with Pike over to the old 1701. Well, actually, he tells Pike, I've got to do something first. And it's basically, I think the thing that he has to do is go see Michael, I guess. I don't know.
I think he's going to get a fleet of Klingons to come riding in out of the sunset.
That is my theory as well.
So Pike go ahead, Scott.
I liked the moment that when everyone gathered in the hallway to tell Michael, hey, guess what? We're going to go with you. We're all going to sacrifice our lives and maroon ourselves a millennia in the future just to help you out. And there's Tyler in that group saying, yep, we're all going to go with you. Then the whole group goes, and he's like, yeah, by the way, I'm actually not going with you. I'm going to stay. And the second viewing, I had already left the room. I was already in here. So as we were prepping up to start, I get a text message from my wife as she watched that scene, and she said, Klingon asshole, he never loved her.
No, the way I read that scene is that Ash was coming to Michael's quarters to tell her that that he's staying, and that and then he gets there and there's a bunch of people standing out there. Hey, what are all these people here for? Oh, Michael, we're all going with you. And he's I'm not.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, all you guys. Of course, I'm with you guys. Totally. Yeah, I'll catch up with you. No, I won't.
I think I left something in the car.
I want to be in my own show.
Right. I've got a spinoff coming. I can't go with you to the future. So
I'm contractually obligated. I'm sorry.
Am I the only one who was like, oh, please, when they did the take 3 steps away from him and then turn around and run into his arms?
Hated it. She played it well, but I hated it.
I just wanted that. If are you familiar with the movie Top Secret? Any of y'all? Because they do that every time they do that, and then they pan off to the fireplace.
Yeah.
I don't think she did it particularly well.
Pike is heading back to the old 1701, and as he's beaming out, Georgiou says, "By the way, I'm Terran from your mirror universe," and he winks at her and says, "What mirror universe?"
Yeah.
Like, that was awesome.
Everybody. I mean, yeah, it's not a secret. Everybody knows who you are. I mean, come on.
All the important people know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Captain Georgiou was dead for several months, and then all of a sudden she just shows back up.
Well, and also
that kind of happens a lot on the show. So
but Burnham promised to tell him what was going on, and he said, okay, don't make me wait too long. And then we never heard about it again. So presumably they had that conversation.
That's a good point.
Yeah. As the episode comes to a close, we see both ships preparing for battle, along with a bunch of fully armed shuttles. So they said towards the beginning, Pike said, hey, we need to retrofit a bunch of shuttles with this weapon, this weapon, this weapon. And number one is like, hey, I've already done that, because, and I wrote in my notes, and that was very Hermione Granger of her. But
I love her.
I gotta say something about number one. They wasted Rebecca Romijn on this part, because Rebecca Romijn is a talented actress. If you've seen her in Eastwick, and she was in, John's laughing at me. She was in Eastwick, and she was in, I know she was in the X-Men, but she was in the Librarians and stuff. They could have done a lot with her, and she's been relegated to just 2 or 3 scenes. It could have been played by anybody. I just don't understand why they get a name like Rebecca Romijn to play a part that they're only going to give her 4 or 5 lines in the whole season.
I know.
Spin off.
Well, yeah. Why would they build They built an entirely new set for the Enterprise bridge. So why would they do that if it was? I mean, for 2 episodes.
Yeah. Everyone's calling for it, and the more they say it, and the more you think about it, the more it makes sense. Maybe they didn't intend to build a spinoff, but they had to know it was going to be a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
So they cast a wonderful actor as Pike. They cast a wonderful actor as number one, and they spend the first dozen episodes secretly building this bridge for the Enterprise that is fully production ready. That bridge set is ready to carry its own show. You can tell just by looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to be prepared in case things went well enough so they would have the option of spinning off a new Enterprise-centered Star Trek that takes place before Kirk takes command. And now they're poised to do it, and it sounds like they have the support of a lot of fans to go for it. And
I
in
would
case
love.
they were going to do that, they wanted to make sure they had someone with chops ready for number one. So they found someone really good in Castor and said, "Hey, this might just be a teeny tiny part because this might not take off, but if it does, we would like you to be ready to, come and take a large role in an ongoing series." That had to be a conversation that took place beforehand.
I
Yeah.
doubt it. I really don't think so. I think that they cast Rebecca Romaine because they had a name, they had a character that meant a lot to the history of Star Trek. And first of all, we don't know what's coming up next episode. There may be a lot more of her in the next episode. But the casting of Pike and number one were probably only just this much below the casting of Spock as potential disaster. I honestly, I would love to see a Pike spinoff, and if they do it, I will happily eat these words, and with ketchup and Worcestershire sauce, I'll chow down on them. But I really don't think it's going to happen. I don't think they've ever considered it, and I don't think they're going to consider it now. A petition of a few thousand names is not enough to build an entire very expensive show on. And I would be stunned, happily so, but I would be stunned if a Pike Enterprise series were to spin off. I think they just, they've got shitloads of money for this show. So building the Enterprise bridge is as important as Pike and as number one and as Spock, as far as has to be done right or the fans are going to revolt, because they're already getting, plenty of people complaining about this, that, or the other thing. If they didn't do Pike number one and the Enterprise well, and Spock, of course, it could have been like, the death knell for the show. So I think, and again, I could be totally wrong, but I really think that it's just, that's the level of attention to detail that this series has had in certain areas. That is one of the reasons I think it's so fantastic, is they are putting this much attention into something that, may or may not be used again.
I think with all of the shows they have in development right now, there's no way they're not thinking about an Enterprise show with Pike. And I don't think there are that many fans who are complaining that much. I think there's a very vocal, rabid minority who's, on the internet. I think most of us are just going along with it. However, we have to headcanon it because we want more Star Trek and we're enjoying what we're getting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right. The ones that are hating on it, they are very vocal. They're all over YouTube. They're all over social media. But obviously, they have enough people that like what they're doing that they're making money off of it, or they wouldn't keep making the show. But I said early on in the season that I would watch a Pike-led Enterprise Star Trek, and I'd stand by it. I mean, that would be a good show. I would like that.
Oh, I would too. Pike has become my favorite all-time Starfleet captain. I think they've written him beautiful. I said this last week or a couple weeks ago about how skillfully they've written the character to be this legend, but not, do like a Captain Stern on him. So,
yeah.
And he's the approachable legend.
Yeah.
They've got a lot of time built in because this is supposed to be roughly 8 years before Kirk takes over the Enterprise. So there's not a whole lot of shows that last. I mean, it's not Law and Order. It's not going to last 20 years. If they do a show and they get 5 or 6 seasons out of it, they still wouldn't be up to that time period. But
out of all the myriad farewells we got in this episode, Pike's was the only one that got me emotionally.
Yep,
I love that man.
What was and I've seen this online too. I try to avoid the internet, but what was the salute, not salute?
Eyes forward.
Yeah. Well, eyes forward and the hands behind the back. I'm like, isn't that like rest position or
yeah, that's at ease.
Yeah.
It was
at ease.
Yeah, I I was
weird?
wondering if they were going to do some sort of salute, and they maybe they just didn't want to set a precedent for something we'd never see again for once.
Yeah, we've never had a Starfleet salute before, and to start one now would be just too strange.
Yeah.
Why would
Okay.
a single use salute would be odd, but to just stand up and respectfully watch an officer as they leave seems about the closest that we would have to that. And it's a very Starfleet thing to do. It's not it's not a whole lot of, pomp and circumstance, and it's not very showy to do that, but it's the simplest, most sincere form of giving their attention and their respect, to just stand there and watch.
And people listening on the podcast, you didn't see, but I was doing the Red Dwarf Rimmer salute.
It would have been funny if Giorgio was there and did the Terran salute.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna pause right here, and I'm gonna play a commercial and let everybody listening hear about some of the other shows that we have available on cosmicpotato.com. So we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. And for those of you that are watching on YouTube, I'm not going to play the ad here. I'm just going to tell you I want to tell you real quick about some of the shows we have. Cosmic Potato, the Super Fan Talk podcast, is a mixture of everything from Marvel to Star Wars, classic films, trivia games, and beyond. Captain Game Show is a thunderdome of wordplay and trivia hosted by our very own John Irons. Wait You've Never Seen is a show in which Virginia and her boyfriend Shane watch and review films that at least one of them has never seen before. Trial by Pilot is a show in which Bill, Elizabeth, and Casey give their verdict on an entire season of television based solely on the pilot episode. World War G is a podcast about all things geek, featuring Troy, AJ, and Colton as they talk about the news of the week, movies, video games, comic books, and everything else they think of. And Review-O-Mania is a show in which Rob and Zach watch and review every WrestleMania ever. So if you're a fan of the WWE, you need to check that out. All of that stuff is available wherever you get your podcasts and on our website at cosmicpotato.com.
Y'all are ridiculous.
The one-arm data. It wasn't me. It was the one-arm data.
Data incomplete.
Do you have a Geordie to go along with him to act like he's doing repairs on him? You could totally hang out some wires.
He has to go back in time and find his arm. And did you know?
Times elbow.
Did you know that the credits for this episode list a yeoman colt who was not named on screen? This is the same character that was played by Laurel Goodwin in the original series pilot, The Cage. Mm-hmm. So that was a little bit of trivia that I found that I wanted to share.
I caught that and I wanted to see her.
Where is she? They put her in the credits, and then they never introduced her on the show. So I guess she was in the background on the bridge or something. I don't know.
Part 2.
Yeah. There is a part 2 coming, so we'll see.
There is one scene that we haven't mentioned yet that I would like to bring up, and that's the Culber Stamets basically goodbye in engineering. When Hugh comes in, and am I the only one that keeps expecting them to just finally go, "Oh, I love you," and then
well,
no,
it's coming because I can speculate about what I think is going to happen, but this is one of the things that tells me that it's not going to play out the way that a lot of people think, because Wilson Cruz very vocally said that he has a lot to do in season 3. So obviously he can't stay separated from the Discovery for very long. He can't. He says he's going to the Enterprise. He's going to stay on the Enterprise, and the Discovery is going to go off. Well, obviously that's not the way it's going to play out if he's going to have a big thing going on in season 3. That may happen at first, but it won't be the entire season. So
yeah, I like the fact that they keep not doing it. I don't, from a want these characters to be happy standpoint, I don't like that they're separated, but every time they have those moments, and it would be so easy to just have them break down and go, oh, okay, we're fine now. And they don't. I think that's the harder choice, and I'm appreciating it.
Yeah, I'm glad they're doing it that way. If they had their grand moment of rushing into each other's arms, that would be too easy. It'd be too simple, and it would skip a lot of necessary steps considering how they have developed Hugh post resurrection, for lack of a better word. He's very conflicted. He's very confused. He doesn't know who he is anymore, much less how he feels about anything or anyone. And to have him just decide, okay, I love Paul. That is putting the cart way before the horse. If they're going to have Hugh and Paul get back together, it's got to be a process. They can't just decide we're back together just like we were before. We're going to pick up right where we left off. They have to start over from the very beginning. Instead of their big rush into each other's arms moment, we have to have a moment where Hugh says, I may not know exactly who I am, but I know that I want to figure out who I am with you. And they can start from there, and then they can rebuild their relationship across season 3, and that's fine. But they can't just hit the fast forward button on that. It would be a disservice to both characters.
I like that it's not the same person being rejected every time. You know, it's not constantly Hugh just telling Stamets, I don't want to be with you anymore. It's Hugh telling Stamets, I don't want to be with you anymore. And then the next time they meet up, it's Stamets telling Hugh, I don't think I can be with you now. You know, and it's both of them. Because I would hate to see Stamets turn into just the jilted boyfriend that wants to beg for Hugh to take him back and all that kind of stuff. I like that it's both of them are kind of going back and forth. So
what do you guys think the odds are that he will go to the Enterprise and then next season something develops, an unforeseen threat that comes from I want to call it the Upside Down, but it's not the Upside Down. It's the same concept. You know, it comes from the mycelial network. And, you know, something he didn't know he had inside of him. And the only person to get through to him is going to be Stamets. And that's how they're going to find their way back to each other.
Or he can't survive away from Discovery because he's linked to Discovery in some way because of the spore drive.
Oh, that's
or something like that. Yeah. Or it's just that Leonard McCoy shows up and takes over the Enterprise, and he's like, I don't need any more doctors. Get out of here.
I was hoping to see Dr. Boyce at some point in this episode, and I'm still hoping to see him next episode.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure we probably will next week.
Love that old bartender.
Did any of y'all catch the little snippet of the original Star Trek theme when they first got on the Enterprise?
Mm-hmm.
I did. That
great.
was nice.
Okay, so this is not going to be this is the speculation portion of the show.
Wait, before we do that, I actually made notes this week.
Okay.
So we actually went through a lot of them. I'm just kind of rapid fire. Another language. Giorgio. This is in the event that I wasn't going to be able to do the podcast, which was, you know, just kind of touch and go there for a second. I was going to send all these notes to Sean and just have him bring them up as point of discussion. So another grunt from Giorgio regarding relationships with mothers, making me think that we'll get an episode confirming that her mom is Sato from the Enterprise. Is Queen Poe flirting with Tilly?
Yeah,
I hope so.
Queen Poe is only 17, so.
You're right. 17-year-old girls never flirt.
I know. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see a relationship between 30-something-year-old Tilly and 17.
Tilly is not 30.
She's pushing 30.
She's a cadet.
She's closer to 30 than she is 17.
I'm not saying.
I don't think so.
I'm just asking if Poe was flirting.
Am I the only person who has a problem with Star Trek naming one of their characters Poe? At this juncture in time, I mean,
I didn't, I never even made that connection.
I don't get it.
I was like, really? There's two Poes? Really? You got to do what Star Wars did? You got to have a Poe?
Yeah.
Cara Danvers and Carol Danvers.
I know.
I actually was really loving that. Apparently, like her whole planet is like a nod to like the whole Pacific Islander people.
Maori.
As long as
Yeah.
somebody else from her kingdom doesn't show up and he's named Tinky Winky.
Wow.
I like how Pike said her full name though.
Yeah.
So you're good.
He practiced.
Burnham's mom thanks whoever for the metamaterial. Without her or him, I'd suffer the ill effects of time travel, often inclusion and representations in the little details. Wants Saru to be captain, has my back. All right, so I rewatched Valley of Shadows as Gant explains why Control needs the sphere data. "Quote unquote fully conscious" means self-aware on a level we can't conceive. Because we had this debate. It was like, well, what does it need the spore data for? It's already obviously self-aware and all that stuff. It doesn't mean self-aware like we're self-aware. It means self-aware like having the knowledge of the universe, like fully aware, like God level aware. That was my interpretation, and now it makes more sense. Because if you destroy all other sentient life in the universe and you get the knowledge of all sentient life in the universe, then you're basically the god of that universe, or at least of the galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
That helped fill in a little hole for me. I mean, I get that you want to be smarter, but that's different than I can achieve godhood. So I get it. I think that's it.
I noticed one thing. When Pike uses a Woosikan's full name, it means the poop's about to hit the fan.
All right. Now, like I said, this is not going to be a popular opinion, but I think we're going to see Control get defeated in the next episode, in the season finale. But I still think that the season is going to end on a lot more of a cliffhanger than season 1 did. Season 1 kind of wrapped things up and then gave us that little cliffhanger at the end with the Enterprise. But I think we're going to have a bigger cliffhanger because I think that, don't ask me to explain how it's going to happen, but the crew is going to get separated from Discovery. The crew is going to travel in time somehow, and Discovery is not. Discovery is going to get either caught up in some kind of stasis, or is going to jump into the mycelial network and come out 1,000 years later, or somehow Discovery is going to last 1,000 years, enough time for the sentience of the computer to take place, and then the crew is going to catch back up with it sometime in the future, in my humble opinion.
So you think season 3 is going to either start or primarily take place around the time of the Calypso short trek?
I think it'll start there, and then it'll I don't think it'll stay there for the whole season. We may get a 3 or 4 episode arc like we did with the Mirror Universe last season, and then they'll come back to the actual Star Trek timeline. They may jump forward a couple of years or something, instead of just being right back where they left off or whatever. But yeah, I think that when we come back next season, when we leave off that next week, I think that there's going to be a question as to the crew and the ship are going to be separated. And when we come back next season, it's going to be the story of how they come back together 1,000 years in the future. Mama Burnham will probably have something to do with it. We'll see. But and also, you know, we saw the future, and Leland kills everybody. So either I tend to think that is going to happen, and then there's going to be some time travel stuff that's going to cause it to not happen, which would be a very Star Trek type thing to do. You know, they have like blown up the ship before and then brought it all back together. We've seen that many times in Star Trek. So that is a future that she has seen. And if the Enterprise thing happens where the torpedo actually does get lodged in the hull, the way that we've seen in the future that she saw and that Reno saw, if that actually happens, then I'm going to start thinking, well, then Leland killing everybody is probably actually going to happen too. So I know, and also I don't think that Spock is going to go. I think something's going to happen, and he's going to stay behind, because they said that they released a while back and said that Ethan Peck's not going to be in season 3. So unless they were just lying, then he's not going with them.
I hope they were lying. I hope that anyone who releases any information about a show is lying all the time.
But you guys have any?
It doesn't always work out. I watch Arrow.
Theories?
Those producers lie about everything.
Yeah.
I watched Calypso a little earlier, and I think one of the signals is going to show up at Alcor 4, because Kraft was saying, "Oh, I can just use this shuttle because Alcor 4 is almost in range from where they were there, so it would be close enough, or Discovery in the future is going to be close enough for there to have been a signal there, if that makes sense."
And didn't the ship say something about these are newly upgraded shuttles? Is that one of the shuttles that was upgraded and outfitted for this battle? Maybe.
Yeah, there was a new shuttle that they had just taken delivery of, and that they had never used. That was the only shuttle remaining that he took.
Yeah, it wasn't newly upgraded. It was, still in the box.
Yeah. And also remember that if they do go 1,000 years into the future, then 3 of the 4 short tracks have played into this season, and there's one left. So is Harry Mudd going to show up at the last minute?
That was my next question, yeah. And then, not a prediction, and maybe you shouldn't say this when 80% of y'all have facial hair, but I kind of want to see a clean-shaven Spock before the season is out.
I think we will, because I've seen a picture.
Yeah, they already released that. Not only clean shaven, but in his Constitution class uniform.
The blue.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he looks weird without the beard.
And the haircut, he gets a proper Spock haircut, not the
hipster,
not the shaggy vacation look that he's had all season.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've been really wanting to see Spock in his quarters listening to some Iron and Wine. Just like kind of meditating, chilling out.
Do you have any speculation guesses for next episode?
Oh God, for next episode, there are many things I would love to see, but I don't know. I think my theory is probably closest to yours, Sean. I would love to see a partial season. Part of this first of this next season take place in the future. I want to see all the Vajraysh stuff. I want to see all of that, but I suspect they might save that for Michael Chabon to piece together in some form or fashion, because he said he wanted to basically recreate the Odyssey in the future. So they might just let him do that, but I don't know. They keep promising that we're going to find out why Spock never mentions Michael, which that was never a big thing to me anyway, because he never mentioned him Cybok. So
Yeah.
Well,
he never mentioned Sarek
Yeah.
until Journey to Babel. So,
And even then, only because he was standing there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So,
And it also strikes me that they keep saying that Michael is going into the future. She's not going to have a crystal. Once she gets there, she's not going to be able to travel back. But somehow or another, she has to go back and set all those signals. They got there somehow. So she's going to figure out something. Michael finds a way.
and I wouldn't be surprised if, because I think, how do you say her name? Saniqua Martin Green, is that right? She's
Yeah.
so good. I think she could be courted by someone else. They might actually kill her off. I would be, and that would be a really big way of saying, like, no one's safe on this show.
But that's not. You want that from Walking Dead, but you don't want that from Star Trek. You don't want no one's safe from this show. You want the warm hug of everything's gonna be okay from Star Trek. At least that's how I've always seen it. It shouldn't be the kind of show where no one's safe. It's the kind of show where, yeah, you might lose people, but we win in the end, and you don't lose I mean, that's what red. Sorry, but that's what red suits are for.
Well, hey, but you have this episode where Giorgio is talking about how she's a martyr. I think if the character sacrifices themselves in a way, I don't know if anyone's seen Butterfly Effect, the theatrical cut.
Yeah.
If she did that, if she was like, oh, I was supposed to die in the forge, or XYZ, and the universe is going to be better. It's going to be Edith Keeler, but with the main character. You know what I mean? So I think it could work, and it could be hopeful and still have that Trek optimism, even if we don't want her to go.
I could see them doing that at the end of a series, but not like sacrificing the star at the the final season. I could see it, maybe. I was about to say a show what they did that on, but it'll be a spoiler if you haven't seen the show, so never mind. So I could see that, but I would be very. It would be a big bummer. They killed Michael.
It would be a big bummer, but one of the reasons I love Deep Space Nine so much is because they were willing to take people out of the show.
Yeah.
Well, they only did that once, and it was kind of a shitty thing to do.
Well, we're talking about Jadzia because she did leave the show. Mm-hmm. She chose to leave the show, but this would be still in my mind if Martin Green was leaving because of.
Oh well, if she's leaving,
you know what I mean?
Oh yeah. If she was going somewhere else, yeah, I could. Sorry, my dog heard a fire truck. I don't know if you can hear him going off.
I don't know what their contracts are like. They typically with some of these type shows, they usually sign them for 3 years at a time. But I don't know. They may only sign them for 1 year at a time.
I think that if she was going somewhere else, we'd have heard of it by now, because she is so into being in Star Trek.
I don't know. Nobody knew that Palpatine was going to be in episode 9 until a couple of days ago.
Yeah, but he's not.
I think
it's not the Palpatine show, though.
Yeah.
Oh, I knew when the first time I saw the Return of the Jedi. I went, "Oh, we didn't see a body. He's coming back." It's taken all these years for me to be right.
All right. Scott or John, you guys have any speculation? Rick, you have any speculation?
I don't even know what I'm doing in the next hour. So.
I always find it difficult to make solid predictions for a season finale, especially a modern season finale where surprise is the name of the game. It is commonplace these days when you get to a season finale. Writers, producers, showrunners, they want to confound your expectations to keep you guessing up until the cliffhanger and then make you wait. Well, these days, they make you wait like 14 months before you get another season. So it's hard to make predictions, especially when you have time travel thrown into the mix. But we've heard a lot of solid points that could very well happen. Part of next season could take place 1,000 years in the future. When they brought the Brightest Star short trek into the second season, that's the moment I knew, okay, it's quite possible that these short treks were made to plant seeds for the upcoming season. And seeing Poe in this latest episode just kind of built on that a little bit more. And when we learned that Dr. Burnham went 50 years shy of a millennium into the future, and you remember that Calypso took place a millennium in the future, well, there's got to be a connection there somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think at this point, we're just waiting for them to draw that connection for us in the season finale. And with still needing to deal with the threat of Control, that's going to be the majority of the episode. How are you also going to fit the Calypso story and that tie-in into the finale? Well, you put it at the end. Mm-hmm. So you can lead people into season 3 with that. Leaving the crew in the 33rd century, waiting for Discovery to catch up with them, seems pretty solid. I would not be surprised if that's the route that they go, and I would certainly watch. Other than that, I can't really think of a whole lot of strong predictions other than with Control being defeated, that's going to be the end of Section 31 as we've seen it this season, and it will be the beginning of Section 31 as we saw it in Deep Space Nine. It's going to be Philippa, it's going to be Ash, picking up the pieces and forming a very quiet, and I think I said this last week, building a very quiet Section 31 that will work behind the scenes for the next 150 years.
Mm-hmm.
Can we do a little Santa Clarita diet and have Leland's head in a jar or something? But you know what Sean was saying has now made me a little afraid, because now I'm thinking there might actually be, you know, a mud android that's going to come in at the last minute as a literal Deus Machina.
Yeah.
Boy,
it could happen. I mean, they have introduced aspects from all those short treks so far. I don't know why they would have this one short trek hanging out there that they don't want to have anything to do with, but
well, he had the technology to somehow clone himself, or how did that work again?
They were
androids.
They're
androids.
There were faulty android copies of himself.
So that I was gonna say maybe they would use that to send like a fake Michael in the suit, but then that wouldn't work because it would need to be her actual DNA.
It has to be your DNA. Yeah.
You know what? He knows his way around a time crystal.
Well, that's how I thought they were going to
true.
pull him in before. That's how I thought they were going to pull him in before. They needed a time crystal.
I don't think that, you know, that's the one thing I don't want to see is a repeat of last season where they just wrapped everything up so quickly in one episode that none of it was really satisfying. I don't want to see them overcomplicate the ending like they did the last time, to the point where it's just like, all right, we have to accept that now the war's all over because they put a bomb in the planet, and you know, it was, you know,
yeah, because I'm not.
I want you to use that voice during every podcast.
I'm not entirely sure that we're going to get a quote unquote ending, because you know, modern television, you know, where they're creating shows for binging, the season finale doesn't always wrap up what happened that season. You know, it continues on. So it very well could be that they wrap up certain aspects of what happened this season, and then the rest of it carries on into next season. So
I would rather see that than a contrived wrapping, you know, tying up of all loose ends, and then coming up with a, you know, not that I had a problem with the cliffhanger part of the end of the first season, because, you know, it's the Enterprise, so yay.
Yeah.
But you know, I would really like to see if it's a continuation, it's an organic one, instead of just kind of the way everything fit into this neat little box that really shouldn't have been there last time.
Mm-hmm.
All right, listeners. Now I've got listener feedback. I had a lot of feedback. I'm only going to read 3 of these because I've got several, and some of them are several paragraphs, and I'm not gonna read those because we've been going for a while now. So Matt Zupka says, haters can hate, but I love the updated Enterprise bridge, and I do have a crush on number 1. Brett Williams says, I loved our trusted Connie and her updated style, and the episode had many great sweet moments. That said, I was a little nervous we'd get just that, sweet moments and 50 minutes of filler. And let's see, Josh Greeley says, so glad to see Poe back. The episode really made up for Tilly not being in last week's episode, and I really enjoyed seeing the Discovery crew on the Enterprise. I like the thought of the Discovery crew. I like the thought that the Discovery crew has now walked the same halls that the crew from TOS would walk in just a few years. So, all right. So, Black Alert, I'm going to activate the Spore Drive and jump us out of this episode. I want to remind you all of a couple of things. First of all, next week will be our season finale, as well as the season finale of Discovery, and we're going to be giving away a Discovery era badge replica. If you want to be involved in that giveaway, then go to Apple Podcasts, which is also known as iTunes, and give us a 5-star rating and a review. You can give us any kind of rating you want, but if you want to be in the contest, it has to be a 5-star rating. My wife said, well, why are you telling people that they have to give you a 5-star rating? What if they want to give you a 1-star rating? I was like, well, I'd rather they didn't give us a rating at all if they just want to make it 1 star. But so I'll post another link to the Facebook group in a couple of days where you can just click and go straight to iTunes and do that. Also, if you're not listening to Cosmic Potato, the Super Fan Talk podcast, you should be. You get to hear some of the voices that you're hearing right now, but we talk about other stuff besides Star Trek. The episode that released this week was our Best in Show episode, where we talked about our favorite maniacal laughs in film and our favorite product placement and our favorite frenemy relationships and stuff. So wherever you normally get your podcasts, you can find that. Now, let me give everybody a chance to plug all the stuff that they want to plug. David, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Let everybody know where they can find you.
Several places, but most relevant to this podcast would be the Star Trek Universe podcast or StarTrekUcast.com. And it's just me and my friend Matt. We were talking about, we've done all the Discovery episodes. We've reviewed all of those. And then, of course, my friend Jason and I have a podcast, DC on Screen, where we talk about the DC Comics properties on film and television. We're having a ball with Doom Patrol over there and catching up with the news and basking in the glow of Shazam. So we'd love for you guys to come over and give us a shout and talk about some of this stuff with us so we can make sure you're not an entitled fan.
All right. And Scott, where can people find you?
People can visit my website at www.planetrisecreative.com or come check me out on Twitter at PlanetRise. That's where I have my graphic artwork always available for commission. If people need social media avatars, banners, posters, postcards, book covers, anything of that sort. If you find yourself in need, then reach out and see if there's something that Planet Rise Creative can do for you. Also, keep your eyes and ears peeled right here at cosmicpotato.com for the upcoming relaunch of the Prime Direction podcast hosted by some guy.
I'm looking forward to that too.
Oh, wait, it's me. It's me. Sorry. It's coming. I'm hoping to have the premiere episode for the relaunch made and ready by the end of the month. Whoever that interview is with, I'm not sure yet, but whoever it is, hoping to have it ready before we get into the month of May.
All righty. And John, thank you for being here.
My pleasure, man.
Where can people find you?
You can find me on Captain Game Show, and you can find me on Cosmic Potato. On the other show, I was trying to rhyme, but failed. Yeah, Captain Game Show is the trivia wordplay podcast on the Cosmic Potato Network. It's fun. I enjoy it. You should listen. If you haven't listened, try it. If it sucks, it's fine. Listen to something else. Listen to Sean's show. He's good.
Thanks for the great endorsement. If you don't listen to my show, listen to Sean's show. That's fine. All right, Virginia, where can everybody find you?
John laughing about it is funnier than what he Oh, man. You can find my Star Trek for Beginners blog at tocasuallygo.com. And like you heard earlier, you can find... you can find the podcast that I do with my boyfriend at waityou'veneverseen.com. And I think we have coming up, I'm trying so hard to ignore I think we have coming up the Muppet movie and Mars Attacks in the next couple of weeks, so that should be fun. And you can follow me on Twitter at Virginia in Texas.
Which one of you had not seen the Muppet movie before?
Surprisingly, me. I had never seen it before.
Okay. All right.
It's a good movie.
Are you all right, John?
I'm okay.
Rick, let everybody know where they can find you.
You can catch me on Starbase: The Next Generation, or Open the Iris, or soon to be coming out the next episode of Infinite Diversity over at the Infinite Diversity Podcasting Network. And occasionally I'm on Captain Game Show with a little bit more composure than our illustrious host.
See, that's the difference between me doing something live. Later, I can edit all that stuff out. But I can't hide behind that here.
And also on
nobody
the
laughs
Cosmic
that hard in my show. So. Except me.
I'm also on Cosmic Potato from time to time as well.
All right. And join us next week. We'll be back for the season 2 finale, which I believe is going to be titled Such Sweet Sorrow Part 2. Until then, remember, the podcast you want is irrelevant. The podcast you have chosen is at hand.